2-on-1 with Toffoli. Here's Suzuki in. Scores. What a move by Nick Suzuki.
Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan, and today I'm going to be doing my final NHL standings and Stanley Cup predictions for the 2022 NHL season. Now, I did a video just like this a couple of months back, but there's been a ton that's gone on, whether it be the Carey Price situation, the Sidney Crosby and Malkin injuries, the Christian Dvorak trade that's happened in between then, that has changed my opinions of this upcoming season and changing my opinions of where I think your team will place. But how well do I see your favorite NHL team doing this next year? Will they make the playoffs? How well will they do? And who do I see being the ultimate winner, the Stanley Cup winner in the 2022 NHL season? Watch till the end for all of my predictions and every single pick, and make sure you hit that subscribe button if you are new. 60% of the people that are watching are not subscribed. If you like hockey, this channel is the place to be. And with the NHL season starting so soon, I am too excited to get into these standings predictions and predict the Stanley Cup winner for 2022. And I gotta say this as well, a lot has changed in my standings predictions over the last month and a half, and my Stanley Cup winner has changed as well. So watch till the end to get the full predictions and everything. But we're gonna go through all four divisions of the NHL, every single team predicting how many points they'll get and if they'll make or miss the playoffs. And we're gonna start out today in the Metro division, a division that's honestly the closest in hockey. I don't think you're going to see one team rise above the rest, but I think honestly there's 7 teams here that could have a chance at making the playoffs. It's going to be so close, and I do see there being 4 teams in this division that make the playoffs as well. Now, one of those teams in the Metro I think we can pretty much nail out as a non-playoff team, and that first team that I want to mention today comes in at the 8th spot in the Metro, and at number 8 I predict the Columbus Blue Jackets to be last in the Metro division. Now, when it comes to Columbus, I don't think you should ever count them out in terms of competitiveness. I still think when it comes to their system and the process they're going through, they'll still have some bright spots. I mean, Cole Sillinger could make the team. You could see maybe that goaltending come up pretty well, but I do still think for Columbus, this is a roster that has still been a little bit decimated over the past year. They've had some big guys go away from them, and I do think even though guys like Patrick Laine will have rebound years, I'm not sure if it's quite enough to make Columbus an actually competitive team truly in that Metro division. But now we're going to move on to number 7, and the team I predict to get the 7th place spot in the Metro division. This is a team that I think could make the playoffs in 2023, but I think this year is a little bit too early for them to actually reach up to that spot. But at number 7, I have the New Jersey Devils. I still think they'll be a super competitive team. I see them getting 88 points, which is pretty good for a non-playoff team, and I do see them doing pretty well. If that goaltending can hold up, I think Dougie Hamilton's going to have a great season. I think you're going to see Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier have career years from what we've seen so far, and I think New Jersey will take a big step above, just not enough to make the playoffs, unfortunately, this next year. But at number 6, we're going to go to a team that I predicted to get number 6 in the last predictions video, but I just don't really have a great feeling about this team, especially when it comes to the defense and goaltending. Coming in at number 6, I have the Washington Capitals. I know, predicting them to miss the playoffs is a big hot take, but I do think Washington will be a team that's on the outside looking in, and I do think with the Capitals, they'll be at 90 points, still being a very competitive and good team. I'm just not convinced about that defense that was just horrendous last year. Vanacek was okay for them in goal last year, but I'm not sure if that transitions, and Samsonov is a huge wild card right now. We'll see what happens, but I do think the Capitals will be one of those teams that just doesn't have enough to make it. Now, speaking of teams that doesn't have enough to make it, I am so sad about this next pick because in the last predictions video, I predicted them to make the playoffs. It's just this time around, I'm not quite sure of it. We're going to go on to number 5 and the last team in the Metro to not make the playoffs. I'm going to go with the New York Rangers. I totally want the Rangers to make it. I think it would be fantastic for hockey. It'd be fantastic for that team, but I'm just not sure if it is truly enough. If they still had Buchnevich, yes, I think the Rangers are a playoff team, but I think that's a lot of production and a lot of good play that was kind of left, not really replaced in the lineup, and I do think Kakko will be great this next year. Lafreniere will take that next step ahead. Now we're going to go on to the number 4 spot, and this is the first wildcard team we're going to mention today. This is a team that I think is going to be a really all over the place team and franchise this next year. Their offseason was not strong in my opinion. They made some really boneheaded moves, but I still think with the roster at hand, they have some fantastic fantastic players, and I just don't see the coach and the system there missing the playoffs. At number 4, I have the Carolina Hurricanes. I see them getting 98 points, being a very good team, and I think they could win this division if they had actually okay goaltending. The goaltending, I think, will still be bad. I still think it'll be horrible, but I do still think the defense is good, even though Dougie Hamilton has left. You still have a rock star forward lineup, and now adding Kotkaniemi, it's even more crazy. I think the Canes will be a good team, a playoff team, just not as good as they probably should have been. But now going to the top 3 in the Metro Division. At number 3, I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Penguins, tying the Carolina Hurricanes in points with 98. And the thing is here, I don't think the Penguins will do as well as I predicted in the last predictions video. Obviously, Malkin being out for as long as he has, or is going to be, is a tough blow. But Crosby, it seems like, isn't going to miss too much time. He was already practicing with the Penguins this last week, so it seems like he might be back within the first couple weeks of the season, which is going to be huge. I still think the Penguins, outside of that, have a pretty good roster, and if their goaltending can hold up, I think this is a team that is still a playoff team. Whether or not they make it far, we'll see, but I still think they're a playoff team this next year. Now going on to number 2, I'm going to move on to a team that I predicted to get first in the Metro in the last predictions video, but at number 2, I'm going to go with the New York Islanders. To me, the Islanders' biggest weakness this next year isn't even their fault. They're going to be on a 13 straight away road trip this next year to start out the season, and I think that's going to be a really make or break stretch for the Islanders. I still think they'll be great afterwards as well, but that could be a really hard stretch for the Islanders to start the season. I do still think they'll end off strong though, and obviously be a great playoff team. Next up at number 1, we're gonna go to a team that I had, I think, 3rd overall in the last predictions video. But you know what? I've almost complete hope in this team for no reason. It's an even year. They're gonna do great. At number 1, I'm gonna go with the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, I predict them to get 102 points, which is easily the lowest out of the division winners. But I do still see the Flyers getting it done, mostly because of the rebound year of Carter Hart. I think that was honestly one of the biggest differences between the 2020 Flyers and this last year's Flyers, but I think Carter Hart will have the greatest season he's had so far. I think the defense will improve. I think Ristolainen will somehow become a decent player out of nowhere, and that will definitely raise the spirits of the Flyers, but that forward group is still great. They still have some fantastic players, and I think Cam Atkinson will be a great addition, especially for year 1. But now the Metro over and done with, we're going to move on to the Central Division, a division that is extremely close in my opinion, and I do see there being 5 teams make the playoffs in this division as well. We're going to start out at number 8, and the team that we all expect to be here. Going on to number 8, I have the Colorado, actually, it's the Arizona Coyotes. I'm not going to fool you guys. But I do still see Louis Eriksson having a great year, even though the Coyotes will be down to the dumpster. Louis Eriksson's going to score 40 goals, so at least there's that. But I do still see the Coyotes getting 59 points, not being the worst team in the league, but definitely being down there in the dumps. Now we're going to move on to number 7, and another team that won't really have much of a chance in the playoffs, in my opinion. I'm going to move on to the Nashville Predators. I see them getting 75 points, being okay at best, but definitely not a playoff team by any means. I see UCSR's having a great year, Ilya Tolvanen expanding upon this last season, but that core is not being good enough, and Forsberg and Ekholm being traded at the trade deadline. But now we're going to go on to number 6, and I said that there would be 5 teams in the Central making it, and I would stick by that. I think there's going to be one team here that is going to be really solid, really good, that just won't be able to make it happen and not be able to make the playoffs. And just like the Rangers, it makes me extremely sad to say this, but at number 6, I have my favorite team in the Dallas Stars. I still see them being decent at a 94-point mark, but the Stars just have too many question marks in my opinion. Will Roope Hintz be healthy? Will Sagan and Radulov come in after inconsistent and injured years last year? What is going on with that goaltending right now? That might be my biggest question mark, and if they're going to be able to have some consistency there. Just a lot that's going on with the Stars that I just don't think is going to work out in the end. I still see them being close, but not being good enough to make it. Now we're going to go on to number 5 and a team that'll just be better than them, and in my opinion, it really all comes down to the Pavel Buchnevich trade, and coming in at number 5, I have the St. Louis Blues. I see them getting 96 points in the year, being that 5th wildcard team, and again, it's mostly because of Buchnevich, Saad being there and adding to that forward group, which I think is absolutely huge. I think we'll see the defense kind of rebound after an okay last year, and Jordan Binnington as well. I think we'll have a decent season too. I think the Blues will just be good enough to make the playoffs and just edge over the Dallas Stars for that 5th place spot. But now we're inside the top 4 for the Central Division, and we're starting to get into some really good team territory here. Coming in at number 4, we're going to go to another wild card team, and at number 4, I have the Chicago Blackhawks. I see them getting 97 points on the year, making that 4th wild card spot, and being a pretty solid, although inconsistent team throughout the season. I do think guys like Marc-Andre Fleury will have big impacts on the team. I think Seth Jones will rebound well, maybe not as well as people expected, but I do think he'll have a decent season. I think when it comes to the Blackhawks, they've solved some of the issues there. I think Fleury's going to have a great year, and we're going to see guys like Patrick Kane and DeBrincat and Kirby Dach especially have great seasons offensively. I think the Blackhawks are a perfectly good team this next year, though I'm not sure how much that lasts, especially come playoff time. Now we're going to go on to number 3, though, and a team that I have big hopes for this next season, not just in the regular season, but also in the playoffs. I have the Minnesota Wild at number 3. Now, I see them getting 103 points in the year, being a very good team, especially at a 3rd spot in the division, and I do see the Wild just having a good, solid year overall. I see a lot of the same things from last year carrying over: the great goaltending, the spectacular defense, the star play of guys like Kaprizov and Joel Eriksson Ek. I see that continuing in the Minnesota Wild being about what they were last year, if not better. Now we're going to move on to number 2, though, and move on to a team that's made some pretty big additions in the offseason that I think will work this next year, and never count out Connor Hellebuyck being one of the best goaltenders in the league. At number 2, I have the Winnipeg Jets. I see them being just above the Wild at 104 points. I do see that defense being majorly improved. Hopefully, they'll actually get some playing time. But you added Dillon onto the team, which I think will be a great fit. You also have Schmidt, who I think can provide some great offensive play. But now we're going to go on to number 1, and once again, no surprise here on the number 1 spot. The first place spot will be the Colorado Avalanche. I see them getting 110 points on the year, being about as good as last season, which was very, very good. And I do see the Avalanche winning the President's Trophy and being up there. They're going to be a spectacular team, and there's really no explanation needed for that. But now we're going to move on to the Pacific Division, and every single time I try to predict this thing, I just get more and more mad about how terrible the Pacific Division is, but I'm going to predict it anyways, because that's what we're doing here. But I'm going to start out at number 8, and this team, in my opinion, will be the worst team in the league this next year. I think John Gibson's going to have another bad season. We're going to see the Ducks just absolutely tank, and I guess I just spoiled it right there. But coming in at number 8, I have the Anaheim Ducks as the worst team in the NHL. I see them getting 55 points, and although maybe the Sabres roster, maybe the Coyotes roster is worse, I just don't like what the Ducks are doing whatsoever on their NHL team. I like their future, I like their great prospects, but I'm just not sure if those are enough to just fix the terrible roster issues they have going on right now. But next up at number 7, I'm going to go with a team that's been plagued by controversy throughout the last few months, basically because of only one player. Besides that, they're actually looking okay. Their goaltending has improved. Guys like Eklund and Ballister are going to have big impacts on the team. And at number 7, I have the San Jose Sharks. I see them finishing with 76 points, and the only reason I think they'll finish that high is because of the goaltending being a little bit improved in net for sure. But I still see the Sharks being just an okay team at best, and once again, not having enough to make the playoffs. They should have rebuilt 2 years ago. Anyways, we're going to move on to number 6, and this is again a team that I just don't think has enough to make the playoffs. Maybe if we see a trade mid-season, maybe they would change, but this team just lacks a ton of star power. They lack what they truly need to make the playoffs in this division, in my opinion. And at number 6, I'm going to go once again with the Calgary Flames. Now, I still see them being an okay team at 81 points. I see Johnny Gaudreau having a good rebound year, being a consistent player there. I see the goaltending maybe improving, hopefully rebounding with Jacob Markstrom, but I don't think the Flames have enough, and I don't think their roster is good enough truly to make the playoffs this next year, even in a terrible Pacific Division. Next up, though, at number 5, I'm going to go to a team who I think is one of the most underrated teams in the NHL. I don't see them making the playoffs, but I do still see them having major youth improvements. At number 5, I have the LA Kings at 89 points. Now, Quinton Byfield being injured for the first month or so of the season is really going to suck. I think that puts a major damper on my predictions for LA. And I don't think they would have been a playoff team otherwise, but I still think they would have been in the race. Now, with the Kings, I think they'll be a good team. I think the goaltending will hopefully improve. Dano will have a great season for them. The defense might improve as well. The Kings have a lot going for them, especially the youth that is coming on the team, but I don't think it'll be enough quite yet to make the playoffs. Kind of in a similar situation, I guess, with the New Jersey Devils. Now we're going to go on to number 4, and this is a team that I think will just miss the playoffs, but have a pretty good year considering they're an expansion draft team. Coming in number 4, I have the Seattle Kraken. Now, I do still see them getting 90 points, not good enough to make it, and not good enough to get a wild card spot, but I do still see there being some pretty big success for the Kraken, especially in the regular season to start out. I think there's going to be some big excitement. I think they're going to start off well, but I'm just not sure if they have the true firepower needed to make it. Yanni Gourde being out for at least a little bit still sucks, and I do think the forward group could still use some improvements. Maybe there's a trade deadline deal ideal, but I think the Kraken will take just a good first step into the league and be a good team to start out. But now we're going to go on to the 3 teams in the Pacific Division that I think will make the playoffs, and we're going to start out at number 3 here, and I'm going to go with the Vancouver Canucks. I mean, simply put, it can only go up from here for Vancouver after the horrible and catastrophically bad last season, and I do think the Canucks will be a playoff team. I don't think they'll be great in the playoffs, but I do think they will be a playoff team that ends up making it. I think the goaltending will once again be great for them. I think Elias Pettersson being healthy is going to be huge for them as well. Coming in at number 2, though, we're going to go to another playoff team here. By the way, the Canucks will get 97 points, but this team at number 2, I think will get 103. A lot of it is because they have 2 of the top 5 players in the NHL, but I do think that the Oilers will have a good season this next year. I don't know if that will translate onto the next few seasons after this, but I do still think 2022 will be good for them. I have the Edmonton Oilers. Now, I think the Oilers will be good enough to make the playoffs, not great enough to maybe make the conference finals, but Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, you cannot count these guys off in the regular season. Both of them will have fantastic years as always, and I think the team around them will be just good enough to glue themselves together and make the playoffs for them. Now we're going to go on to number 1, and this is probably the most automatic first overall place that any team has had in the history of the NHL, but if the Vegas Golden Knights screw this up, they should honestly fold the franchise. I don't think they will. I think they'll get 108 points, but man, if Vegas doesn't get it done, just fold the franchise, erase it completely, because they don't deserve anything. This is the most easy number 1 placement ever, and Vegas should get it done. But now we can move on to the Atlantic Division. Honestly, the most interesting and intricate division for this next year. Maybe not at the bottom, but at the top, it becomes increasingly interesting. But for the Atlantic Division, we're going to start off with a pretty easy one. At number 8, I have the Buffalo Sabres. Now, I don't think the Sabres will be as bad as people expect. I see them getting 60 points, not being the worst team in the league. In fact, not even being the second worst team in the league. I still see them being bad, but I do still see guys like Middlestat, guys like Cousins taking some big next steps, and I do think the Sabres will be pretty good spoilers throughout the second half. Now we're going to go on to number 7, and speaking of good spoilers, we're going to go to a team that I think could have some really good youth infusion into this next year in the Detroit Red Wings. I think Lucas Raymond's going to be great for them. Moritz Seider, I think, could win the Calder Trophy. I think you're going to see that goaltending vastly improve with Alex Nedeljkovic, and I think we'll see the offense be a lot better than it was before. I don't think the Red Wings are nearly there to be a playoff team, but you're going to start to see the blueprints of the Red Wings truly take form this next year, getting 77 points on the season. Now we're going to go on to number 6, and we're going to go on to a team that should have signed their big RFA already, and I think is going to have some struggles because they didn't, but this is a team that I don't think was going to make the playoffs anyways. I think will be in kind of the same position as they were last year. Coming in at number 6, I have the Ottawa Senators. Now, I see them being decent at an 81-point pace, but not having good chuck really hurts the team now for sure, and even though I do still see guys like Josh Norris, still taking that next step for sure too, maybe Matt Murray rebounds as well, I don't see it being enough truly to have the Sens as a playoff team this next year. 2023, though, could be the year they get it done. Now we're going to move on to number 5, and as you could probably tell with the Metro, I had 4 teams making the playoffs there. I had 4 teams making the Atlantic as well. And this 5th team is a team that I desperately want to see make the playoffs. I think when they're in the playoffs, they're extremely fun to watch. They're a team that can always do some damage, and they did it last year. But at number 5, I have them missing the playoffs. I'm going to go with the Montreal Canadiens. Now, I have them at 92 points, 1 point shy of a playoff spot. And I gotta say this right now, not having Carey Price is going to suck for the Habs, but I do hope that Carey Price again is all good to go when he comes back, and I'm wishing him all the best. I think Christian Dvorak will be a great trade for them, but I'm not sure if it's enough to alleviate that and even replace the likes of Shea Weber or Carey Price not being on the team. I think the Habs will be decent, but not good enough to make the playoffs, sadly. But we're gonna go on to a playoff team in the fourth team in the Atlantic and a wild card team here. I'm gonna move on to a 93-point team in the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, it would just be poetic. It would just be so poetic if the Leafs and the Habs were 1 point shy and the Habs had to miss the playoffs because of this. But I do see the Leafs. If I had to choose one or the other, I would say the Leafs are the better regular season team, and I do think they would make the playoffs ahead of Montreal, and I do see that being the case. I don't think they're going to be great. I don't think they're going to be world-beating in the regular season like they were last year, but I do still see them make the playoffs and likely still losing in the first round this next year. But now moving on to the top 3 in the Atlantic Division, all 3 of these teams teams, being the divisional spots in the division. Next up, though, I'm going to go to a team that I think will have a little bit of a regression this next year, but hey, they just won back-to-back Stanley Cups, so you still have to respect the hustle. But at number 3, I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Lightning. 100 points in the year. I still see them being a great team. Maybe not as dominant as maybe seasons past, but I do still see Tampa being good enough to make the playoffs pretty easily. Vasilevskiy is going to be great once again. We're going to see the forward group take some even bigger steps potentially, and the defense being as good as advertised. Tampa's still a good team. Get used to it. But at number 2, we're going to go to a team that I think will have a great regular season, as well as potentially even playoff success. I'm going to go at number 2 with the Boston Bruins. At 106 points, I think the Bruins doing very, very well this next year, and probably having the best regular season they'll have for a very long time, with this rebuild probably eventually coming, potentially as soon as after this next year. But Bergeron, it has said publicly, if this next year does not work out, he could end up leaving, and I think the Boston Bruins know that and are trying to make the team as good as possible for that. I think Linus Ullmark's going to have a great year for them. Nick Foligno's going to come onto the team and have a great season too, but the core is good enough to get them there by themselves, but the added bonuses are also going to be huge for them too. But now we're going to go on to number 1, and a team that just missed the President's Trophy, 1 point shy of the Avalanche, but I still see this team being fantastic in the regular season, winning the Atlantic Division, and being a true contender. I'm going to go at number 1 with the Florida Panthers. I'm still on the Florida Panthers train, y'all. I love what they've been building and what they've been able to accomplish. Also, having Joel Quenneville as the coach isn't a bad situation whatsoever, but I do still see the Panthers being a dominant team this next year. Having a fully healthy Aaron Ekblad also completely helps. Having Spencer Knight probably filling in as a starter will be a huge bonus, and I think that with the Panthers, our forward group is stacked. Their defense is extremely underrated, and I think the goaltending will stay strong. This is a playoff true contender, and I think they'll win their first series ever, or not ever, in the last 26 years or whatever it was, this next year. It has to happen, and the Panthers, simply put, need to get it done. But now going on to the first round matchups, I'm going to kind of skim through these because we'll eventually go on to the conference finals and who I see winning the Stanley Cup. But I wanted to go through the first round matchups in both the West and the East as well to see what matchups we could potentially see for this next season. When it comes to the West, I have the Colorado Avalanche for the St. Louis Blues. Obviously, the Avs would probably win that. I mean, I think they could even be even better in the regular season this next year, and they were pounding the Blues in the first round of last year. So I think that will continue. Probably a 4-1 series win, let's say. Next up is the Winnipeg Jets versus the Minnesota Wild. I think this is it would be a crazy playoff series. I'm pretty sure we saw this a couple years back, probably in 2019, I believe, something like that, maybe 2018. But this is a great, I think, rivalry matchup throughout the regular season and the playoffs. I think it's going to be fantastic. I do see the Winnipeg Jets winning this one, mostly because of Connor Hellebuyck. I'm going to say a 7-game series, and the Jets win it in 4 or in 7. Next up, I have the Vegas Golden Knights versus the Chicago Blackhawks. I think the Blackhawks will be a good team this next year, but not good enough to beat the Vegas Golden Knights in the playoffs. The Golden Knights will get past round 1, and I think they'll win in 5 games against the Blackhawks. Next up, though, I have the Edmonton Oilers versus the Vancouver Canucks, an all-Canadian playoff matchup. I see this being a pretty great matchup overall. The Canucks bringing some firepower, but I do still see the Oilers getting it done, and Connor McDavid willing his way onto round 2 in a 6-game defeat. Now on to the East, I have the Florida Panthers versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. This is the matchup of teams that cannot win playoff series, so one has to win, and I do think it will be the Florida Panthers who will move on to round 2. Another playoff loss for the Toronto Maple Leafs, but I think the Panthers are just too good for the Leafs to get over, and I think John Quenneville, as well being the coach, is a massive plus for the playoffs. Now to the next matchup between the Boston Bruins and the Tampa Bay Lightning. We are getting some absolutely amazing, delicious playoff matchups with these predictions, but with Boston versus Tampa, it's going to be an all-out bloodbath. I see the Bruins winning this series actually in 7. I see it being a crazy series right to the very end, but I do think Tampa's lack of depth compared to last year will ultimately haunt them come playoff time. Next up, and the next one, we have Philadelphia versus Carolina, division winner versus a wild card team. I see this being a pretty competitive one, and I do actually see the Carolina Hurricanes winning this series, pulling off a pretty big upset and defeating the Flyers, moving on to round 2. I'm going to say 6 games on that one. Then, last but not least, we have the Islanders versus the Pittsburgh Penguins, another rematch of just so many matchups over the past couple of years between these two teams, a pretty underrated rivalry between these two teams as well, but I see the Islanders once again getting the best of the Penguins and once again being just a fiend for Sidney Crosby and the Penguins to deal with. But now with all the first round matchups done, we're going to skip on to the conference finals. And for my conference finals in the West, I have the Colorado Avalanche versus the Vegas Golden Knights. Another big rematch of these two heated rivalry teams. I think that'll once again continue. And on to the East, I have the Florida Panthers versus the New York Islanders. And honestly, this top four just has a ton to offer. You have a team like the Florida Panthers who's never been in this position for a long time. You have established teams like the Avalanche, established playoff teams like the New York Islanders. You have the Vegas Golden Knights who are trying to get back to that big stage they were back in 2018. A lot of storylines to look out for here. But in the West, I see the Colorado Avalanche winning versus the Vegas Golden Knights in 6. And in the East, I once again have the Florida Panthers winning against the Islanders in 7. I think the Islanders are a decent matchup for the Panthers, but I see the Panthers just being strong enough to get it done, especially if they are healthy. And Spencer Knight, we always seem to see a great young goaltender just explode in the playoffs, and I think Spencer Knight will be that guy this next year. And then we go on to the Stanley Cup finally. Colorado Avalanche versus the Florida Panthers. And last time, I had the Panthers winning in 7 games. This time around, though, for the Stanley Cup winner, I think it'll once again go to 7 games, be an all-out brawl. But I just don't know if the Panthers have truly enough to get it done. And in the 7th game, I see the Avalanche storming back from a 2-0 deficit. Nathan MacKinnon leading the way and winning 4-2 in regulation. And the Colorado Avalanche will be your 2022 Stanley Cup champions. I hope the Panthers are able to get the win in this scenario, but honestly, it would be a fantastic Stanley Cup final either way, and I do see the Avalanche now getting it done, winning in 2022. But that'll be it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure you hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. Also hit that notification bell to get notified on all the new uploads, all the new live streams when they go live. And of course, comment down below, what do you guys think of my predictions? What do you agree? What do you disagree with? And who do you guys see winning the Stanley Cup? Where do you see your favorite team placing in the standings? Do they miss the playoffs? Do they make the playoffs? Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on all the division picks. And of course, share this video with your friends, to any hockey fans you guys know online, in real life, whatever it may be. And click on this card for all my hockey rankings content right in one playlist. My name is Nathan. Have a fantastic day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.